Hello, I'm Rad from RADACAD. In this video, I want to show you a really interesting example of using Power Query Dataflow combined with Pipeline, which is part of Microsoft Fabric Data Factory, together with parameters. I want to use these to show you a really interesting example. We are going to extract data from a data source and capture that information, but we are then going to extract each year of data as a separate CSV file in a SharePoint folder. So the result of this is not going to Power BI. I'm going to show you how we can generate multiple CSV files using this data flow process, using parameters, passing the parameter value from pipeline so that it generates multiple extracts of the data, which is quite interesting. You can use it in a lot of scenarios. This is just a sample scenario I'm going to show you, and it is going to be a really interesting use case for it. So if this is the first time you are dealing with data flow or with pipeline, I suggest you go and watch other videos. I have a video about what is data flow, what is pipeline. I even have a past video that I explained, the previous video that I explained that how you can pass parameters from data pipeline to data flow, which can be interesting. Now, this video is a use case of that. So I'm going to connect to a data source, and let me do all of these in an example so that you can see how this works. So I'll switch to my screen over here. This is my screen. I'm making sure that my Fabric license is started, my Fabric capacity, because this would require Dataflow Gen2, and also it would require pipeline, both of these being Fabric capacity objects. So I need my Fabric capacity to start. So here it is. I'm in my workspace that has Fabric capacity. This sign that you see on the workspace shows that this is a capacity-based licensing. In my case, this is a F2 capacity. Now I'm going to create this scenario that this is my data source. I'm getting data from a what we call OData service. OData is like a API service that I get data from, similar to getting data from a database or something like that. Then this has data for multiple years. I want to generate that data as multiple CSV files in this SharePoint folder. Here you see I have a SharePoint folder. In this SharePoint folder, I want to have one CSV file per year, something that we could not do previously using Power BI. We could not do this using even Dataflow. Recently, Dataflow brought this feature that we can export data into SharePoint, and that combined with parameter gives you this ability to export into SharePoint not only into one file but multiple files, which is really interesting, and I'm quite excited to show you that. So I'll go and use this URL and go to my workspace. I'll create a new data flow. This should be Dataflow Gen2 because that is the only data flow type that gives you destination. So I'll choose Dataflow Gen2 and I'm going to call this Dataflow SharePoint extract param, just some name that I can find later. As you can see, I have created something similar to that previously, but I want to do this from scratch this time so that you can see how this works. So Dataflow is a Power Query object. What I'll do is I'll go and get data from a source. There are plenty of data sources we can use. I will use OData. Exactly the same can be done with any other data sources. You can get data from SQL Server, do any of these with it, or you can even get data from SharePoint and extract into SharePoint if you want to. So here I'm going to get my orders data. This is a view of what my orders data would look like. I have one record per order, and the shipping information, things like that. Let's say I'm also interested to get customer information beside it as well. So what I'll do, once I get the orders, I also get the customers so that I merge them together. You can also expand data from from one of these to other but I would just merge it so that you can see here we can do transformations too. So this is my two tables, customer table, orders table. I'm going to say in the orders table, let's go and merge it with the customer table based on customer ID, and customer ID left outer join is okay. Merge it. The result of merge would come as another table like this, as another column like this. I'm going to remove those. As you can see, there was a customer before. This is generated by what we call as the relationship columns. I'm not interested in showing you those. They would give you the same output, but because I wanted to show you how merge works, so I just did it manually myself. Then I'll go and expand it, and I say, well, just give me for now the things such as name of the company, contact name, contact title. Let's say this is good enough for now. So these are customer information that I expanded into the orders table. Now this table that you can see here, and I'm not interested in customers anymore, I'm going to right click on it and disable the staging. So this orders table is what I want to generate as an output into a CSV file. And how am I going to do that? So in Dataflow Gen2, one of the things that we have here is a data destination. Data destination gives me the ability to export that data into different places. And previously we had these options: Lakehouse, Warehouse, SQL Database, Event House. Now, recently we have SharePoint, which is quite interesting. So what this can do is that this can extract it into a SharePoint. So this can export this data into a SharePoint, but this would be to one CSV file in SharePoint. I want to make it parametric so that I can change this parameter from the outside. So I'll cancel this. First, I'll go and create a parameter. In my data flow, I have this section that I can go and create a parameter. I'll create a parameter. I would call it year. I would say this is a required parameter. The type is numeric, decimal type. The default is 1996, right? So 1 year of data. As you can see in my data set, if I go to the orders table, you can see in my orders table, I have data for 1996. Further, if I go down, I should have other years as well, such as 7 and 8, whatever. I don't know how many years I have. So I have created this parameter. Now I want to use this parameter to filter the orders table, because the goal here is not to extract everything in one SharePoint file, but every year as a different SharePoint file. But I don't want to do that manually by creating copies of the same order table. What I'll do is I'll go to the orders table on the order date. Here I'll click on this and I say datetime filter. And I can say, for example, is in this year, is in that previous year, is in something like that, right? So there are functions like that that I can say, for example, is in this year. And this would write a formula for me that is like this: select rows, each date is in current year of this. And you see there is no value because this dataset doesn't have anything in this current year. So I'm going to change this. I'm going to say each date.year, and that gives me the year value, equals this year parameter. So I'm going to write this, and then I press the commit button. This understands my formula. The formula is saying that when the date, the year of the date, is matching the year value of the parameter, show it. So in this case, this is only 1996. No matter how much I scroll down, it would be always 1996. It wouldn't be more than that. So this is at the moment a preview, takes time to load. So here I have only 1996. So far this is all done. Now I want to generate output of this as a CSV file. My CSV file output has to have a CSV file name. That name should have this year in it. So this 1996, I want to say 1996.csv. So I'm going to create a text value from this. What I'll do is right click here, I'll create a new blank query. A blank query doesn't have anything in it, it's just a blank value. I click on next. It's just a blank table. So this blank table at the moment doesn't have anything in it. What I would say is that I would say this is equal to year. Then whatever year value is, 1996, it would be that. But it is a numeric value, as you can see here. I don't want this to be numeric, so I would say Text.From. This is a Power Query function. Power Query is case sensitive, that converts any value to a text version of it. And when it runs, you see this change to ABC that shows this is a text value. If you are interested to learn more about Power Query functions and M functions, I have multiple videos about that in our YouTube channel. So I would say whatever this year is concatenated, this is concatenation character with .csv. And this would generate something like this. So this is actually the type of name that I want for my CSV file to be. I would rename this. Instead of query, I would call it file name. File name is not a parameter. File name, however, is a value generated by the parameter. Then I'll go into that data destination for the orders table. So I'll go and select the orders table. I will go here and say create a data destination, SharePoint, and here I would add this SharePoint folder. So in order to use SharePoint as a destination, you can actually go and use the main root URL of the SharePoint like this. Copy this, go to here and paste it here. And you need to do authentications and things like that. Even the site URL can be parametric. Whenever you see this icon somewhere, this means it can be parametric. So I can even export it to multiple SharePoint files, SharePoint sites if I want to, which is a really interesting example. But for this example, let's stick with one SharePoint file, one folder, one SharePoint site, one folder, but multiple files. So once I create that connection, it asks me which folder I want to put these extracts on. Let's say XYZ is the folder that I want to put these extracts on. So I'll select this folder, and then it asks me what is the file format. Well, it's a delimited format, it's a CSV file, comma delimited. I'm not going to change any of these, but this part that says file name, I don't want the file name to be always the same, because if I export 1996 to the same file name and 1997 to the same file name, it's going to overwrite that. I don't want that. So I want this to be changing based on that, not the parameter value, because parameter is a numeric value. I need a text value, and that is why I created that separate query. So I'll say select a query, and then here I would go and select that file name query. Remember, I created that file name. So this means that that file name generates that CSV output. Clicking on next, this will do some evaluation, checking the data mappings and things like that. It's all okay. I would just say save settings. So this means that whatever the orders table is, the output of that will go to a SharePoint folder. Here you can see that the orders output will go to a SharePoint folder, to this URL, to this directory, and the file name, however, this time is changed by the parameter. So if I go and change the parameter to 1997, run this, this would generate 1997. If I change it to 1998, run this, this would generate 1998. But I don't want to do this manually. I want to run these from pipeline through a loop process, which is kind of interesting, bringing all of these together. It makes such an interesting scenario. So what I'll do is I'll set my data flow parameters to be available for outside objects, and that is done here. In the options here, I'll go to the parameters, and that was the options right here, as you can see. And then I say enable parameters to be discovered and overridden for execution. At the time of creating this video, this is not checked by default. So I have to check it. In the future, it might be by default checked. So when I click on OK, this means that these parameters can now be discovered and overwritten from something like pipeline. So I have created my data flow, everything is all right. I have not yet extracted anything in SharePoint, there is nothing in here. I'm going to save this, but I'm not going to run it because this would just run for 1 year. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to save and close. So save and close. This has saved my metadata changes, my pipeline is, my data flow is already created. Now the next stage is to run this from a pipeline. I'll go and create a pipeline this time. Data flow is the object we use for data transformation, whereas pipeline is the object we use for orchestration and control flow execution. So I'm going to call this pipeline export to SharePoint, something like this. This pipeline can have many activities in it. Data flow is just one of the activities, which I'm going to just use that activity for this case. So I'll say add a pipeline activity. I'm going to add a data flow activity. I'm going to call it data flow export to SharePoint. The name is not really that much important. In case you have multiple data flows, this is a way you can distinguish them. Once that is done, I'll go to the setting. I'll choose the data flow here. This is that data flow I have created. Once I set that, this understands that this data flow has parameters. So it expands it and show me that there is a parameter value here. I can go and change it to, for example, 1997, run it, and get the data flow run as a 1997. I would get CSV file for that year. If I change it to another year, I get CSV file for that year. So I don't really need to go to my data flow for every time changing the value of parameter. But again, this is too much manual work. I don't want to do this much manual work. So what I'll do is I will actually go and add a loop structure here. To add a loop structure, I'll go to activities section, and here I will find for each loop. For each loop is a way that you can loop for a number of activities in here, and that loop can have a range. You can say I want to loop this many times, right? Now this can be generated by a dynamic expression, but here this expression I'm typing here. If it let me type it, it doesn't, so I'm going to type it in here. So range is one of the functions, or you can go and search for functions in here. You can see there is a collection functions, and the collection function itself has a number of items in it, or many other functions. What I'm using in this case is range, and I'm saying, for example, start from 1996, go for 3 years. So for 3 values. So this will give me a list of values, 1996, 7, and year. When I evaluate this expression, this should show me what this looks like. 1996, 7, and 8, like a list of items. So when I write something like this, and I say this is okay, this means that this for each loop is looping through these 3 years. I'm going to call this for each loop for each every year, right? And that is what it loops through, right? Then I'm going to add this data flow inside this. Now you can just move it there, or you can go and add it again. It's just as easy as this. I'll go and add the data flow here. Once added, I'll go and say choose this data flow. It understands that it has a parameter. And then I can go and set the parameter value here. Now I'm not going to set that manually like this here. I'm going to say add dynamic content, because I want that value to come from the item in that list. You see how interesting these all connect to each other? It's really fascinating how this all works together in a really interesting way. So once I come here, I can do a lot of different actions. One of those actions in these dynamic options is the for each iterator has a current item. I just need to select that, right? This would give me the current item. For example, when it loops and the current item is 1997, it shows 1997, which is that I want this to be passed to my parameter value. And that's it. Now I have all of these set up. I'm just going to rename this from Dataflow 1. Let's just call it Dataflow Export to SharePoint. And that's about it. Now I can, at the end of this, I can also add an activity such as send an email that this is all done, completed, but I don't really need to do that. This is all good to go. At the moment, I'm just going to run it. Now I'm running this on a F2 capacity, the minimum capacity possible that you can have in a Fabric licensing scenarios. So this might run a little bit slower, but the performance is not what I'm talking about in this example. I'm going to show, I actually showed you how this works, and you can see here that how interesting this loop structure generates 3 runs of that data flow. One for each of those years as a parameter. Now in the for each loop you can also do things such as parallel execution, or you can set it to be executed in a sequential order. All of these can be set in a settings. I have not done those settings. So as you can see, this run was successful. Now before I show you the result, in order to understand it, I click on the input for each. Here, for example, you see that the value 1996 is passed. This, for example, is 1998 passed. They may not be in the right order in the monitoring. 1997 passed, and then it generated an output, which in this case, this just tells me like the execution details, but the actual output for us should be the CSV files that you can see generated correctly, one for each year. If I go and, for example, open this one, 1998, we should expect all the order dates to be 1998. If I expand order date, you see the year value is all but 1998. Here it is. So nothing from 1997 or 1996 in it. So this example was a quick, simple example of showing you how these together work. We created one data flow just for one table, one extract of data, one export to SharePoint, and then I created a parameter for it so that it changes not only the data, filters the data, but also it changes the output file name based on it. Then I passed that parameter value from a pipeline, but the only thing was that in that pipeline I created this for each loop to loop through a range of values and run that data flow. Altogether, this is a really neat example of showing how you can export your data into multiple files. This could be multiple SharePoint sites as well. This could be multiple tables or multiple databases. There are plenty of different ways you can do it, and that is the beauty of this. When you combine parameter, data flow, and pipeline together, you can do your ETL in a very dynamic way, which can be really effective. I hope this video helped you to understand this and go and use it in your data integration implementation. If you are interested in videos like this, go ahead and subscribe into our YouTube channel. We have weekly videos on Microsoft Fabric and Power BI. I'm Rad. Until the next video. Bye.